Today we're going to be making and canning chicken broth. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's really simple and probably one of the easiest things you could start out by pressure canning. I have things like onions, garlic, carrot scraps, and celery. That's what I like to use in there. Some people save their peppers, but it's just a preference. Next, you want to dump your chicken bones into here. I already dumped one. We're going to dump 2 more into the pot. I have some extra carrots, so I'm going to throw those in there also. Next, we're going to go ahead and fill our pot with water. Now we need to add our spices. I got these from the garden, and you don't have to have fresh spices, but this is what I use. I have some onion, thyme, oregano, and parsley in here. So it just depends on what you have out there. Oh, and I have some rosemary. So I just used what I had out in the garden, and you're just gonna flop it in there. I'm gonna be using whole peppercorns. Next, I'm gonna be using salt. Make sure you just give it a good mix. Go ahead and turn this on high heat until it comes to a boil, and after it comes to a boil, we're gonna turn it on medium and let it simmer for 3 to 4 hours, depending on how big your pot is. And you want to make sure you cover this. I'm going to go get my lid and put the cover on. This is a pressure canner, so I'm not going to lock the lid in, but I'm just going to lightly set it on top of my jar. Alright, I've been outside all day and our chicken broth is finally ready. I had it simmer for about 6 hours, and that's okay because I was outside busy, so I got to it when I could get to it, and it tastes so good. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're going to fill our jars. I'm using quart-sized jars. You wanna make sure that you wash and sanitize your jars before filling your jars. And we're going to need your jars, a funnel. The funnel that I'm using has a little measure on there. So we're gonna be filling our jars and leaving an inch headspace. So as you can see here, it has different spacings. So when I just stick it on the jar like that, it'll show you how tall to fill the jar. You need a ladle. Then you're gonna need some vinegar. This is to wipe the tops of the jars. Then you're gonna need your lids. Any canning lids is fine. This is the ones that I'm gonna be using. You wanna make sure you wash and sanitize your lids before putting them on the jar. First, you wanna make sure you strain your chicken broth. I'm going to strain it going right into the jar just so it's like one less process. But sometimes I'll strain it into the bowl. It just kind of depends on your preference. So let's get to it. We're gonna fill these jars. I forgot to add, you're gonna need some type of strainer. I usually use a big strainer, but I'm just gonna be using one of these, so since I'm straining right into the jar. I just laid a towel down and laid these jars on the towel because it is really, really hot, so I don't want the jar to crack on the cold stone. Now all my jars are filled. I'm gonna wash the pot so we can get these started. Now that my pot's all washed, I'm gonna put the rack on the bottom, and you have to remember that hot jars go in a hot canner and cold jars go in a cold canner. We're going to be pressure canning. Whenever you do chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth, anything like that, you need a pressure canner. You're gonna fill it up with 3 quart-sized jars of water. And I put a splash of vinegar in there. What this does is it helps so the jars don't become cloudy. I have like really hard water, so this is optional, but it doesn't hurt to do it. Just a splash. Now I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on medium heat just so the water can warm up while we get our jars ready. Now you're gonna wanna make sure you take a clean towel and some vinegar, and we're gonna wipe all the rims with vinegar. This helps to make sure that you don't have a bad seal and make sure that the tops are clean. Now we're gonna go ahead and put our lids and rings on. When you put your ring on, you wanna make sure that it's fingertip tight with only 3 fingers. You don't want it to be too tight. So I just use these 3 fingers and crank it on. Now we're gonna fill up our pot with our jars. We're gonna put our lid on. I'm gonna turn the heat all the way up and I'm gonna let it do its thing. And once it comes to a steam, then we'll set a timer and I'll show you what to do next. All right, now you have a steady stream. If you put your hand over it and you move it right back, it comes right back up. You're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you're gonna stick your weight on and you're gonna wait until this little gadget goes up to 10, but you need to look at where you live, what pressure it has to be canned at. Where I live, it has to be pressure canned for 25 minutes at 10. Now that the pressure is up to 10, we're gonna set a timer for 25 minutes. All right, I have the heat all the way up, so we do have to turn it down a little bit to make sure it doesn't keep going up. All right, it's been 25 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and turn the heat off. You're not gonna touch the pot, you're going to leave it and let the pressure come all the way back down to 0 by itself before touching the pot. Okay, it's at 0, but we're gonna wait until this little guy goes down and then we can lift the lid. All right, the little top is down and our pressure is all the way down to 0, so we could go ahead and take our weight off and open the lid. Always open the lid away from you because usually water comes out and it's still really hot. We're gonna take our jars out and we're gonna put them on the counter on a towel because they're very hot and we don't want our jars to crack. Now that our jars are out, you can let them sit for 24 hours and you can check the seal and they should be good to go and they should be shelf stable.